I guess I'll start by saying I'm going to tell a story today. I have no slides, no notes. My model is taken from one of my favorite radio programs on NPR called The Moth Hour. And The Moth Hour is a program where a person is expected to show up and tell a story. Poor Bill wrote me repeatedly for me to send him an outline of what I was going to talk about. I refused to send an outline. I never responded, just like many students in my class have not responded when I send emails, where's the paper, where's the exam. So, I have a title, and the title is The Story I've Never Wanted to Tell That I've Always Wanted to Tell. And so today, I'm going to tell it. What anthropologists do best, I think, is tell stories. And we tell stories out of our lived experience. Unlike other disciplines, one of the things that we anthropologists do, along with reading text, is we go out into the field and we live with other human beings very intimately. Not only do we watch people dance, we dance with them. Not only do we watch people pray, we pray with them. Not only do we watch people cry and suffer, we cry and suffer with them. And so one of the main things that I was taught in my training is the most important quality that you need to be a good anthropologist is empathy. And so, let me begin. If there was a thesis to this talk today, it would be, there's something about meditation and anthropology that is the same. If it were a question, the question would be, what is it about anthropology and what is it about meditation that is the same? I resisted being an anthropologist most of my life. I like to think of myself more as a scholar of religion, as a religious studies person. And when I first came here to Seton Hall, people would ask me, who are you? What do you do? And I would say, oh, I'm a religionist. I didn't want to own that I was an anthropologist. Now I'm happy to own that I am an anthropologist. And it's because of this connection that I think I have made between anthropology and meditation. Religious studies scholars, theologians study particular religious traditions, they study texts, they study rituals. I do all of those things, it's true. But anthropologists of religion study this religious dimension of being human. We ask the question, why is it that we human beings are religious? What is it that most motivates us to come up with these stories, to develop these rituals, to formulate these doctrines, to create dogmas, to create these hierarchies, to create all of the really beautiful art and imagery and symbolism that goes along with it? Well, I think that's a question that will probably never be answered. I think of it as one of the really big mysteries of life. But nevertheless, I like asking it. And the more that I ask it, the more I get to explore many different positions. Now, there is a very well-known anthropologist by the name of Ernest Becker. Unfortunately, he died very early in 1968, and he wrote a book called The Denial of Death. One of the things he says in that book is about one of the central concepts of anthropology, cultural relativism. He says cultural relativism is truly tyrannical. Now, we've heard that before in other places, usually in a negative kind of way, as though cultural relativism is a tyrannically dangerous thing because it undermines the possibility that there might be truth somewhere. It undermines the possibility that one religious tradition, if we were to talk about it in a religious context, might be the only custodian of truth. And of course, what anthropologists know is that every religious tradition claims to be the custodian of ultimate truth. So, what Becker meant, though, was that the reason why cultural relativism is tyrannical is because it forces you out of every single position that it is. It forces you into the place of no position. And from that position, you have to look, and you have to observe, and you have to see the way that all the different religious traditions work and operate. And it opens up a space for something different to happen. And that's where it's like meditation. When I train my students to meditate, I teach them to sit in a particular posture, and I teach them to watch their minds, their thoughts, their emotions, as though they're watching a movie. And I often use that model. I remind them that when you sit down in front of your computer or in front of your flat screen TV to watch a movie, you know that you're watching the movie. You adjust the volume, you sharpen the color, whatever the case may be. Somewhere along the line, you forget that you're watching a movie. In that deeply romantic moment, in that moment of suspense, you're on the edge of your chair, crying over the pain and suffering of another, feeling the emotion of being in love, or yelling and screaming in that moment of violence that you have gotten so totally sucked into. And then at some moment, you remember that it's a movie. And meditation works the same way. It places you in that position where you are able to look and observe in the way that an anthropologist is trained to look and observe. But there's more. And the more is, what happens when you're in that position? The so-called neutral position of the anthropologist, or the so-called neutral position of the meditator. What is the possibility in that place, in that space? There is a famous postmodern maxim, often leveled by its critics. The position from everywhere is the position from nowhere. What is it like to be in that position from nowhere? What is it like to sit in that position of nowhere and to allow something to happen? When an anthropologist goes into the field, often in my own case, I have no idea what to expect. I may have read many books about where I'm going and what I'm going to do. I assure you the books have never matched the experience. I have to constantly be ready to receive whatever presents itself to me. One of the most important things I think that anthropology has taught me is to practice what we call epistemological humility. We don't know everything, convinced as we are, trained as we are, that our scientific worldview, that our particular religious worldview is the superior worldview. Well, how do we deal with the fact that another person tells us they get possessed by spirits regularly, or they have visions, or they're capable of doing things that in most of our minds are just illogical and make no sense? So with meditation and with anthropology, it's to sit and to abide in that position from nowhere and wait and see what happens in level of image. So I'd like to close by reading you a poem. And I think that this sort of encapsulates, at least for me, what it means to be an anthropologist of religion, what it means to be a teacher, and someone who uses meditation as a pedagogical tool. And it's by the famous Muslim mystic Rumi, and it's called Only Breath. Not Christian or Jew or Muslim, not Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi, or Zen, not any religion or cultural system. I am not from the east or the west, not out of the ocean or up from the ground, not natural or ethereal, not composed of elements at all. I do not exist. I am not an entity in this world or the next. I did not descend from Adam and Eve or any origin story. My place is placeless, a trace of the traceless, neither body or soul. I belong to the beloved, have seen the two worlds as one, and that one call to and to know, first, last, outer, inner, only that breath breathing human beings. There is a way between voice and presence, where information flows. In disciplined silence it opens. With wandering talk it closes. Thank you.